So I'm not gay. Thank you. I'm not, but I find myself saying that a lot. You could go so far as to say that I'm professionally not gay, which is weird, because my life revolves around a comedy show called It's Pronounced Metrosexual, where I go on stage and I talk about identity and snap judgments and sexuality. But the funniest thing about all of this is that none of it really has anything to do with sexuality. The reason why I started doing that show and the reason why people always assume I'm gay has nothing to do with sexuality. It's all about gender. Gender and sexuality are often lumped together, but they're two different things. It's like apples and sexy oranges. Not the same thing. They're certainly related, but they're independent concepts. And it's important to realize that one does not dictate the other. Today I'm going to be talking about gender, not sexuality. Gender is something we all learn about as kids, but we learn a very limited concept of a concept that's truly unlimited. What we learn as kids is it's just incomplete. It's pieces of the puzzle, but it's not the full scene. Now, in case you didn't grow up in the States or missed it growing up, I'm going to give you a quick rundown on gender as it's taught here. Maybe you'll relate. Take all people and divide them into two. Boys line up on the left, girls line up on the right. Boys, let's start with you. Boys are aggressive, impetuous, good at math, love the color blue. They get dirty, roughhouse, play sports, but not house. Trucks and soldiers and Legos are their toys, but they break them all, because boys will be boys. Boys can grow up and be whatever they want. The world is their oyster, and whether or not they realize it's their privilege to capitalize on this prize that's limited just to guys, it's there for them. The Y chromosome prize. Boys have no limit. The bar is as high as it can go. There is no extent to their privilege unless they want to be a nurse, because that's kind of gay. Right? Girls, on the other hand, are docile, passive, natural caretakers. Love the color pink, born to be good bakers. Girls hate bugs, love hugs, and are better at vacuuming rugs. Science. Dolls and purses and makeup make their days. While boys play with video games, girls would rather play with hairspray. Girls grow up to be moms and leave the other jobs to dads, unless they want to be a teacher, a nurse, a receptionist, or a clerk. Now, what I just described certainly applies to a few of you. Yeah, there are people for which these descriptions end up being true. The problem here is options, and if you're counting, we have only two. Two options to describe every person in this room, each and every one of you. Two options to describe every person in this world. 7 billion individual identities, simplified into two. Now, as you can probably guess, gender isn't really that simple. It's true. In fact, there are as many versions of gender as there are a number of you. The easiest way to understand gender is to break it into three distinct pieces. One, gender identity, which is who you in your head know yourself to be. More on this in a bit. Two, gender expression, the ways you present gender through your actions, dress, and demeanor. And three, biological sex, the physical characteristics you're born with. This will all get clearer. Let's start with biological sex, the physical traits you're born with and develop that in many people's eyes equals gender. We understand biological sex to be made up of a bunch of different things. Chromosomes, hormones, hip-to-shoulder ratio, breast size, voice pitch, just to name a few. But we always think of one thing. Reproductive organs, aka penises and vaginas. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. Shakespeare said this 200 years before we had a word for sociology. He hit the nail on the head. At birth, you're cast in a play, given a role, given a script, and told to play that part till you're dead. The directors in our plays follow us around every day of our life. The directors are our parents, our teachers, our peers, our preachers, news broadcasters, book writers, TV show producers, firefighters. Every person in your life who has an impact on you knows the script you've been given and knows when you've been missing your cues. And as we grow up, we become directors in other people's plays. We know when a little boy isn't playing the little boy part right, or when a little girl is running astray. Let's recap. One, let's all agree that gender is more complex than what we learn as kids. Two, while biological sex is certainly a component of gender, it is not a determinant. That is, the biological sex characteristics you're born with don't really have any mandate on who you'll grow up to be. People who are born with penises are taught to be boys. People who are born with vaginas are taught to be girls. 3, gender identity, how you make sense of gender in your head, sometimes aligns with your biological sex, and sometimes it doesn't. 4, your gender expression is a separate thing entirely. It's how you present gender to the world, and sometimes it aligns with your biological sex and your gender identity, and a lot of times it doesn't. And 5, let's all agree that gender as we learned as kids is not as complex as it should be. Now, I know that that was number 1, but it's also number 5, because it's very important. In my ideal world, well, let's put it this way. Socrates said, the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. After this talk, I hope that this talk will serve as a catalyst in helping you realize how little you actually know about gender, as well as an inspiration to open your mind and be willing to learn more. We're all constantly learning about gender, and we have time to do that, but you have to be willing to. You have to be willing to unlearn all the things you learned as a kid and open your mind up to some stuff that might freak you out. But that's what it's all about. Now, in my dreams, I don't foresee a society that is gender blind, but I do foresee and wish for one that's gender creative, where people can figure out who they are and be themselves, exploring what that means, and in that they'll be supported. Where questioning one's gender won't be shunned, but an expectation. And we're realizing that you don't fit into this gender mold won't lead to isolation and depression, but will be a source of celebration. And above all, a society where people, regardless of their gender formation, are safe. Thank you.